Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, recording episode 672 or 762, one of those numbers. We've had a ton of shows since 2013. Joining me, as is almost always the case, is my co-host from RevengeTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, is Seth Cox. As we continue to talk about free agency, it feels like the deals are, trickling away. We don't have anything new since our last show, which brings us, Seth, and we've graded the moves, but now we want to take a look at each position and kind of go over. Did the Cardinals get better at or not at each position? And Seth, as we go through this, what do you guess we're going to probably find as we go through this?
Yeah, probably not, right? For a lot of them, that's going to be an interesting thing to watch and things of that nature, because it's just, yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. It's different. It's been underwhelming, and you and I have really gone through all of it and as to why, but it's disappointing that this is where everything is, but we'll see how it plays out, and if the product on the field ends up better, because at the end of the day, that's all we actually care about.
It is true. Now it's true that they didn't get worse at most positions, but in free agency, you kind of hope that you get better. And I'm doing a series on CardsWire like this, so you probably, if you follow the show and you follow our sites, you probably would have seen my positional breakdown for each. I do an article per position, and it's disappointing. And we start at the quarterback position, where Kyler Murray's out, Jacoby Brissett and Keaton Slovis return, and they add Gardner Minshew. Are the Cardinals better at quarterback, Seth, than they were at the end of the season?
I mean, the depth charts, and absolutely not, but the reality of who they are, where they are, from a starting perspective, if they were always planning on running it back with Jacoby, they're the same, right? I mean,
they're the same. They are.
The biggest question we have, and the biggest reality that we have to acknowledge, is was that a one-off for Jacoby? Like, was his career season something that's replicable? And the reality is, people can go, well, they've got Trey, they've got Michael Wilson, obviously Marvin Harrison. They improved at running back. They're going to have a running game to support him. All of that might be true. And all of that. But the reality is, it's a new offense for a guy who has only once in his career had the season he's had. I mean, you look at his career, his best season ever was in his Indianapolis season before this last season, obviously. He was under 61% completion percentage. He was, throwing for under 200 yards per game. And he started 15 games. And he was throwing for under 200 yards per game. I mean, everything that happened last year was literally the best season as a starter he's ever had in his career. And so to expect anything of that nature, to see it continue. And by the way, he threw a ton of passes. I mean, that's something you and I have gone over and over, but he threw just an absurd amount of passes. It's actually unfair to him, right? Like, it's unfair to expect a guy that has never had a winning season as a quarterback, whose career best season before this was completing less than 61% of his passes, and who's always kept the, taking care of the ball. That's been the thing he does. He doesn't throw interceptions. Is going to all of a sudden run it back and have the same success in a brand new offense under a new head coach, at 34 years old.
And you just on paper, talent-wise, there's no way you can justify that they're better at quarterback. Now, there are reasons why they released Kyler Murray. We understand that. They're financial reasons because they didn't want, while Kyler clearly was their best option for 2026, they did not want to commit to him financially in 2027, and keeping him on the roster would have done that. But losing Kyler Murray and adding Gardner Minshew is clearly a downgrade. They're not better at quarterback. They're significantly worse at quarterback. But if you were just taking Kyler Murray out of the equation totally, then they're basically the same with, well, honestly, if you just ignore the Kyler Murray, then I guess they are a little better because Gardner Minshew is significantly better as a backup than Keaton Slovis, who threw 2 passes. And the thing I remember most about Slovis's first appearance is they didn't even let him throw. They didn't even want him throwing a pass. In that when he stepped in against Jacksonville and Jacoby had to get checked out, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. They didn't. I think one of them was a direct snap. They didn't want him take a snap even in that one. But we go to running back, and the room is a little bit different. Gone is Amari Mercado. Not back is Michael Carter. They bring back James Conner. They redid his last year of his deal, so he returns. Trey Benson is back. Bam Knight was re-signed. Corey Kiner, if you followed late last season, was a late season addition. He's under contract. And then they added Tyler Algier on a 2-year deal worth a little more than $12 million. The question is, are they better at running back? And what my evaluation was on my site, on the article that I wrote, was maybe. Like, on paper, you'd think so, because going from a trio of Connor, Benson, DeMercado to Algier, Connor, Benson, or Bam, you think that is better. It should be better, but we also have to consider they're better if Connor resembles anything what he was prior to last season.
Right. And that's the thing, is we've seen, and you and I kind of broke it down, and I get it. It was a very small sample size, but the reality was, even after the injuries, the running game didn't disband basically until Kyler got hurt, right? But when Kyler had the foot issue, and then whatever we want to have the conversation about with what happened after that, the running game got significantly worse, and the reason why was, well, you didn't have that threat anymore, and they just kind of pinned their ears back and went after the quarterback. So it had to get better, with the health, obviously. But now you look at it, you have to expect that Algier is going to give you something more than what you were getting from, Amari DeMercado, Michael Carter, and Bam Knight. Again, James Conner, it is what it is at this point. Like, if he's healthy, you're excited. If he's not healthy, you appreciate the time he was here, right? Trey Benson, I think we're at the point where we're not expecting anything, and if you get anything, you're happy about it, and then we kind of, like you said, we know what Bam Knight is. If he's your 4th running back, you're in a good spot. If he's your 2nd running back, you're probably not in a good spot.
Right. And as much as people liked Bam, look at the yards per carry. It was 3.3. That's not productive in the least. Now, did he score like touchdowns in 3 games in a row? Well, when you're down 3 score, like, the touchdowns are going to come from somewhere, right? They're going to come from somewhere. And so he was the one playing. So he scored, I think 3 games in a row. And so there was that production. But as we saw late in the season, none of the offensive production was meaningful offensive production. It was just fantasy offensive production. So, but I with Algier, your running back room is perhaps better. It's more like a hopefully better.
I mean, you just have to assume, even if but this is a problem, Jess. You're 1,000% better no matter what, because Algier Knight is better than Carter Knight DiMercato. So you're better, but it becomes how much better are you? And the reality becomes you're only significantly better if you're getting something from James Conner or Trey Benson, not both, either or, as long as Algier is healthy and whatnot, right? But you're significantly better if you're getting production from both. You're just better because Tyler Algier is better than Michael Carter and Emari DiMercato in that instance. So that's what makes this a really difficult thing, is that you're better 100%, no questions asked, you're better. The question becomes, how much better? Are you just, better because you have Tyler Algier, or is the running back room going to be healthy and going to allow for explosive, type of play?
We move to the wide receiver position, where gone are Greg Dortch. Not returning is Zay Jones. They bring back Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, like they're under contract. A bunch of guys who are mostly insignificant: Jalen Brooks, Xavier Weaver, Tajon Palmer, and their additions. So basically, you're swapping out Zay Jones and Greg Dortch for Kendrick Bourne and Devin Duvernay. And you look at that, and for me, I don't think they got any better, but they didn't get worse. Production-wise, they're about the same. If you think return game, Devin Duvernay and Greg Dortch is basically a wash, perhaps cheaper. He has a bigger body for the passing game, but between Dortch and Kendrick Bourne, Dortch and Zay Jones, they had 41 catches for almost 400 yards and 4 total touchdowns. There were 39 catches for 500 and something yards, and no touchdowns between Bourne and Duvernay offensively last year. So statistically, in terms of talent wise and across the board, I think it's basically a wash. Other than Bourne wants to be here. Now, they paid more than we probably think they should have, but good for Bourne. He'll be a different type of player. Well, especially we're going back late last season, because Dortch was both returner and their number 3 guy. If we go back to Zay Jones when he was healthy, Zay Jones versus Kendrick Bourne, high-end Zay Jones and high-end Kendrick Bourne are about the same. They're about equal in talent. Bourne's done a little bit more in his career because he's been healthier over the last 2-3 seasons, but I don't think they got better, but I don't think they got worse at receiver.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because you have a guy that is basically, Kendrick Bourne's been fine. But like you said, it's not like he is, he's a clear third receiver, right? Like he had a good season last year, being forced into like a receiver 2 role, sometimes a wide receiver 1 role with San Francisco. But as like a second receiver type, he's been around 400 yards. Or sorry, third receiver type. That's basically what they were getting from the combo of Zay Jones and Greg Dortch. The price is relative? Almost the same?
Yeah.
And so we'll see where it comes from and where it goes and all that stuff. But the reality of all of this is they didn't do anything to improve, but I don't know if there was necessarily a lot they needed to do to improve, if that makes sense.
Right, because and honestly, we'll have to wait and see how wide receiver 3, which is really pass catcher 4 in the Cardinals offense, how much they need to produce anyway. And Bourne's a nice fit offensively. He knows the offense, things like that. He's a bigger body than Dortch, and the same with Duvernay. And you don't lose anything or really gain anything with Duvernay in the return game either, because while Duvernay's had the much higher ceiling, we haven't seen it for a few seasons. And as a returner, Greg Dortch had his best year last year. Coming in next on the Res Zero podcast, Best Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move to the next group of players: the tight end, the offensive line, the defensive line, and what do we think of them? That's coming in next on Rise Up See Red. We're back on the Res Zero podcast, Best Cardinals Talk on the Web. Make one correction: we're going to talk tight end and offensive line before we do our next segment. And the tight end position is pretty simple and pretty straightforward because not much has changed. Travis Vokolek gone. They hit an exclusive rights free agent that was not tendered, which is a rare case, but I believe more than anything, it's probably due to Vokolek's injury status, as he suffered a scary neck injury in week 5 and was done for the year. I hope for his sake, one, that he's healthy, and 2, that he can play football again, but it just won't be here. They have not re-signed Josiah DeGuara or Pharaoh Jones. Pharaoh Jones was a late season addition. He's been around the league for a long time, and DeGuara is basically, he started the season on the practice squad and then came up to the active roster. He's a special teams guy who can do a little bit in the passing game. And replacing Vokolek and those guys is the one signing that has happened since our last show is tight end Tegan Quitoriano. Played all 17 games for the Falcons last season. Basically is kind of like a number 3 tight end and plays a lot of special teams. So he's basically a 3-4 tight end with special teams, making him like a gazillion other tight ends in the NFL. And when I did the evaluation for this one, I said the tight end room is no better, but it's not like they could really get better, and they're not any worse. They're just the same, but it was a good position to begin with for the Cardinals on the roster.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, you want to see Ryman healthy, right? But outside of that, you know what you get out of Elijah Higgins. I don't know anything about this Tegan Quattriano guy. I'm not even going to. Quitoriano going to lie. And then, like you said,
he's a dude like all 4 tight ends around the NFL. Pretty much.
And then Rivaldo Fairweather. I think that's just a creative player in Madden.
They poached him off the Cowboys practice squad, never played him. So we will see Mr. Fairweather as camp body / practice squad guy / maybe if they keep 4 tight ends on the roster, tight end 4, because it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure since LaFleur does like the multiple tight end situation, that we will see 4 tight ends on the roster. Who that 4th guy is, assuming the health of McBride, Higgins, and Ryman, that it's going to be a duke it out battle between Fairweather, the new guy Quitoriano, and whatever tight end they draft or sign as a rookie free agent, basically. Woo, gripping. Which brings us,
right?
it's gripping. Now we go to the offensive line. I think this is an interesting discussion because they have made some moves. Some are good, some are questionable. But the departed offensive linemen include Will Hernandez, Evan Brown, whom they released, Jonah Williams, who has gone unsigned thus far. I don't know about how his injury, his shoulder injury is right now. Kelvin Beachum isn't back either. And then adding to the mix, they have brought in Isaac Seumalo. They signed Matt Pryor, and they signed Elijah Wilkinson. Now, if we're looking at that group as a whole, they basically returned 2 sure starters in Paris Johnson and Yilda Froholt, and with question marks at 3 other spots. Isaac Seumalo is a good addition. He is an upgrade over Evan Brown. Not that Evan Brown was a bad option, but he is an upgrade over Brown. So now 3 positions are now set. Left guard is better. And then their moves have been questionable at best. And I'm not sure if we want to say the offensive line is better or worse, because adding Pryor is simply depth. It's not a move that moves the needle at all. And Wilkinson is the one that is one of the weird ones, because you give him 2 years and what is it, $6 million or so. He was a 17-game starting right tackle for the Falcons, played every single one of his snaps, and so he is an answer at right tackle. And in a world, if they draft a tackle in round 1 or 2, you could slide him over to right guard. On paper for me, I don't know if he's an upgrade over Isaiah Adams. So I think that's kind of the same if they're playing guard. The only thing he is better at than Jonah Williams is availability. And so, like, if you're just talking player for player, if you've got a roster, going from Jonah Williams to Elijah Wilkinson is a downgrade. So you upgraded one position and you downgraded another. So I don't know if the offensive line is better or not.
No, it's tough to tell. And you know, Siamalu on paper, obviously an upgrade. We can't even dispute that. But from there, it just becomes either running it back or getting worse. So that's where the questions become, or the questions need to be answered, right? Like, what do you see after Siamalu? And then the question on Siamalu, I mean, you got a guy that's going to be 34 this year. So it's 33 this year. So it's, you know, it's a question. I know we've beat it into the ground, but it's a realistic question. A 33-year-old offensive lineman.
That move makes sense if they
100%.
draft Ty Simpson this year, or if they draft their quarterback this year and they have Simpson in there. He's a high quality guard for not a ton of money relatively for the guard market. So if you're going with a young quarterback this year, fantastic move. If you're going with Jacoby Brissett, you're like, okay, sure.
Right. And the other question becomes, or statement, I guess, right, is if Siamalu is your best offensive lineman, is your offensive line good? And I think we, and that's not a shot at Siamalu, but we're not talking about, you know,
he's an above average guard. He's an above average guard, and there's nothing that's good. That's good. That's good. But
if he's your best player, that's a problem.
And we hope Paris Johnson is that guy.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
we got to get him through a full season. We got to get him through a full season at left tackle.
1,000. That's where we're at with him, unfortunately, right?
Yeah. Coming up next on the Res of Sierra podcast of SR Cardinals Talk on the Web, let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Did they improve at those other positions there? That's coming up next on Res of Sierra. We're back on the Res of Sierra podcast, SR Cardinals Talk on the Web. We're going to talk about the defensive front seven, the defensive line, the edge, and the linebackers. We start with the defensive line, where they have added a lot of bodies. So gone is Bilal Nichols. Gone is Justin Jones. He was released late last season. Gone is Dalvin Tomlinson. Gone is Calais Campbell. And we presume he's not returning at this point with the moves that they've made. Returning are Darius Robinson, Walter Nolan. They re-sign LJ Collier. PJ Mustipher returns, and Dante Stills. Mustipher, who is an exclusive rights free agent, they tendered him. He's coming back on the league minimum. And then they've added 3 free agents from other teams. Roy Lopez, after a year in Detroit, comes back on a 2-year deal. They signed Jonah Williams to a 1-year deal, not the Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle, but the defensive tackle. And also more recently, defensive tackle Andrew Billings, who gets a $2.5 million 1-year deal. Now, Tomlinson, aging, and a quality player his production did not match the previous years when he was in Cleveland. Calais Campbell, who was by far their most productive defensive lineman last year. You lose 2 of their key guys last year. You add a solid Roy Lopez, and if they're a defensive line 5-6, you bring back Collier, Jonah Williams, who's a guy, and Andrew Billings, to this point, the 31-year-old, he's a guy to have in your rotation. If That's what you're doing. You're replacing Tomlinson and Campbell with Lopez, Williams, and Billings. You're not better. You might not be worse because you added healthy bodies. But I think everything about this defensive line being better or worse, it 100% lies on the shoulders of Darius Robinson and Walter Nolan.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about is you can't say it's worse because it was bad.
But Calais was good. So the defensive line was bad. Calais good. But and now Calais isn't back.
Right. But you also can say that there's a chance that it's a worse group. Right? Like that's what the problem is more than anything is you're banking on two guys that you literally have no idea with in both Walter Nolan and Darius Robinson. Like that's what you're putting your hopes in. And those are strong hopes. Those are first round picks. Consensus top 35, 40 players in their class. We can say a lot about hindsight about Darius Robinson, but he was a consensus top 40 pick. So maybe they reached a little bit, but the reality was they needed to address that, and there was a run on defensive linemen. Walter Nolan was a consensus top 25 talent in the class. So now it's just about developing those guys. You're hoping that the addition of Pete Kwiatkowski, a full offseason of health for both of them will change things. But again, that's the hope. It's not the reality.
Yeah. Like Roy Lopez is likely on par with Tomlinson in terms of what they got from last year. So you're not getting worse with Lopez.
Just at a massive discount.
Correct. So you're getting a cheaper, equally productive Lopez, solid. But replacing Calais Campbell with Jonah Williams and Andrew Billings, you definitely didn't get better. You just added two guys who can play more snaps.
Correct.
That's basically it.
Well, you added two guys that can play more snaps between the two of them.
Yes.
But we have no idea if they're going to be as effective.
Correct. That's the thing. They're going to play more than Campbell, but probably not going to produce near what he did because Campbell's been a special player. But like you can't lean on him that much and have a good defensive line. And that brings us to the edge. Edge is interesting because they lost nobody and gained nobody. Literally zero transactions. They did not let anyone go. No one knew his signed. They didn't even need to re-sign anyone. So they're clearly not better and they're clearly not worse. But for a group that needs more, I'm really surprised that nothing's happened.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also what the continued question marks become. We know what Zaven Collins is at $10 million. He's probably a little overpaid, but it was also a guy that they like and trust. Obviously, Josh Sweat is their guy, but we need to see more from him this year, especially to close out games. Yeah, to close out games.
He had almost no statistics in the fourth quarter. I think he might have had an assisted tackle and a penalty in the fourth quarter of games this year.
And then the backups are the backups. BJ Ojulari, nothing expected. Baron Browning, disappointing re-signing. Jordan Birch, third-round pick, no comment, right? So
he's there.
Yeah.
And they have Elliott Brown and Eku Leota, another creative player.
Right.
Eku Leota, which we'll talk draft. Like everyone's pegging right tackle at 3. Edge makes so much sense.
Way more sense.
Because they didn't do anything. They literally did nothing. So if you draft a Ruben Band, David Bailey, Arvell Reese, then your offseason moves at edge makes sense. While you can still go tackle round 2, you could have Elijah Wilkinson play right tackle this season. Hope that Josh Fryer or Christian Jones are better than Elijah Wilkinson. Also but I don't know.
Well, and here's the reality, and I don't want to go back to the O-line too much, right? But this is the conundrum that they've put themselves in. It's clear that I don't know what the technical term is, but the group that includes Elijah Wilkinson, Isaiah Adams, Matt Pryor, Josh Fryer, and Christian Jones. So that 5-pack of players is worse than Zaven Collins, Josh Sweat, Baron Browning, Jordan Birch. Like, it just is. Again, we're not even going to talk about BG Ojulari. He's not even here until he's actually doing something, right? But and so we can look at it and all of us can say, yeah, they got to draft an edge. It's the strength of the class. It's a premier position. It's something that the Cardinals need to address. However, you're clearly worse on the offensive line. So how do you look at that and not go offensive line, right? And that's what the problem is, and that's what you and I keep talking about more than anything is this is a situation where their best option might be to trade down and get a Spencer Fano or a Francis Maaga, at the 7 spot. And I don't even know who drafts 7. I'm just putting names out there. Than it is to stick and pick an Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain or David Bailey, because if you just were to like rank the positional groups, that right side of the offensive line is significantly worse than the depth and the group of edges that this team has, right?
Yeah, that's tricky. It's tricky. And then we go to the inside linebacker group, which is slightly different, where they released Akeem Davis-Gaither, who signed yesterday with the Indianapolis Colts. So he is reunited with Lou Anarumo, who was his DC over at Cincinnati before coming here. Apparently he was in the comments of an Instagram post when someone said, "Good riddance, glad to get rid of you." And Akeem responded in a comment saying the same thing. So apparently him leaving was mutually beneficial, which is interesting for the statistical season that he had, which he was a highly productive player, both on defense and on special teams. Just didn't look particularly great on film. He had 117 total tackles and included a team leading 20 special teams tackles. We'll see but they replaced him. They did nothing else. Mac Wilson's coming back for an injury, Cody Simon, Owen Papo. So they lost Channing Tindall. Most guys, you probably don't know who he is. He played special teams and he's going to the Falcons. They lost Akeem Davis-Gaither and they added Jack Gibbons, who is surprising when we got the deal. The numbers came in today at 2 years, $7.25 million, which for me is a little higher than I would have expected. But he is a slightly less expensive version of Akeem Davis-Gaither. Is it better? Maybe better. Well, perhaps, or hopefully better.
And doesn't that beg the question if he's the starter over Cody Simon?
Correct. I think I like that they're not just giving the job to Cody Simon. I like that, especially considering how atrocious the defense was when he was leading the defense. Yeah. Sadly.
This is another group where Sonny Styles.
Oh, he'd be a great fit there too, man.
Yeah, but it's really hard to justify picking an off-ball linebacker or 3rd overall.
Steve Keim DM times, that would have been the perfect pick. He's still chasing Darrell Washington, Carlos Dansby pairing, man.
And man, Styles is the love child of those two, right? The length and the size of Dansby and the athleticism.
Steve Keim doing his thing now. He's looking, man. If he would have been available in my drafts, he would have.
But yeah, there's not much to say. I do have a question. You were mentioning Akeem Davis-Gaither in the comments. Is that more the Cardinals? Is that more Jonathan Gannon? Is that more Nick Rallis? What is your opinion on that?
Honestly, my guess is probably fans. My guess is probably the fans. Maybe a part organization, part fans. I don't think he had problem with either the defensive coordinator or Jonathan Gannon. I don't considering his usage last year and his production, you would think that he would be grateful for that. I think it's more how fans talk about him as a player, or perhaps the organization, or simply Monty Austin for cutting him. And anytime a player is cut, you have hard feelings because you just do.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no way to avoid that. You have a deal that you've agreed to, that you signed you to a 2-year deal, and they're basically saying, we don't want you anymore. No, we're not going to pay you anymore. And, Kyler Murray gets to have, he can have, it is cordial. Why is it cordial? Because he's getting all his $36.8 million this year. Now, he's missing out on another $17.5 million this year, $19.5 million next year, but he's still getting every penny of the $36.8 million he was going to get. And so, you can't have too many hard feelings when, especially, you get all that money, you get to go play and potentially start for a better team. So good for him. Now, Davis Gaither, will be interesting to see how he does under Anarumo, what role he has, the type of contract he gets. But yeah, the Gibbons move I like.
Well, let's say this, and I don't know if this makes sense, but in my psychotic brain, it makes sense. The room is at worst the same. Correct. Because I think Gibbons for ADG is a wash. But it also has the potential to be worse if Cody Simon is actually as bad as he played as a rookie. Does that make sense? Like, yes. You're okay with what he did as a rookie when he's a rookie. But if he plays that way as a second-year player, and you're like, holy cow, this was just who he is. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is this was a swing and miss, but 2, this is an issue. So like that's where I'm at with him, or the linebacker room is, I like it. Again, I don't think it's better. I don't think it's worse, but I do think it could be worse if for some reason our guy Cody Simon doesn't improve. Like, yes. Even if he stays,
and if he has to play and he's no better.
And here's the thing, even if he stays the same, he's actually worse, because again, you can't be that bad as a second-year player in the NFL. Like, you have to grow, because like you said, it wasn't solely Cody Simon, but the defense was atrocious when it was the Cody Simon led defense.
Yeah, it was so markedly bad. Mac Wilson got hurt, and then they had no more competitive games the rest of the year.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that.
Coming up next on the Rise of Seer podcast, Best Served Cardinals Talk on the web. Let's go on to talk about the last bits. We're going to talk cornerbacks, safeties, and specialists. Did they get better? Did they get worse? That's coming up next on Rise of Seer. We're back on the Rise of Seer podcast, Best Served Cardinals Talk on the web. Got the cornerbacks, the safeties, and the specialists. Did the Cardinals get better in free agency, or did they get worse? Did they stay the same? We look at the cornerback room, and we largely have this. They brought back Star Thomas. They brought back Sean Murphy-Bunting. They haven't added anyone new, and they didn't let anyone go. This room is no better or no worse on paper. The difference simply is, do they stay healthy? Yeah. If Sean Murphy-Bunting's healthy, if Star Thomas is healthy, Will Johnson is healthy, Denzel Burke is healthy, Max Melton is healthy, and Garrett Williams, who's not going to be healthy, but you have 5 guys who have now started and played at a decent level. Like Denzel Burke was fine as a starter. Will Johnson showed flashes of greatness. Max Melton, we'll see how his role goes this year. But if you've got those 5 healthy, that's a better cornerback room, but it's not because of free agency. That's just staying healthy. So they're not a better group because of free agency, but they're also not worse. And the hope is they're all healthy, and that back end is significantly better.
Correct. And that's what they need in order to have any success this year. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now, yeah, you have to say that they're the same with upside if healthy. And that's the thing. And it's literally catastrophe if they're not healthy. I mean, it's because it was bad last year, but it was bad because of health. So now if it's not healthy, it's literally a catastrophe.
Yeah. And I've in my last couple of mock drafts that I've run for the Cardinals on the weekends, I've had them taking Keontae something Stills or something from Miami, the cornerback, like in round 3. They've got the former cornerbacks coach from Miami. They always draft cornerbacks. A cornerback draft on day 2 would not surprise me at all, especially since, Max Melton is a guy I would not be surprised if they moved via trade based on how his playing time went late last season. And the interesting Instagram story post when the news broke that Nick Frolis was returning. I don't know. It's good. Like I don't want to say that that's exactly what that was in a reaction to, but you can't say that it's not, because pro athletes know what they're doing.
Oh, 100%.
And we move to safety. They lose Jalen Thompson, heads on a 3-year contract worth $33 million with the Dallas Cowboys. They replace him with Andrew Wingard. Real reasonable deal, $3 to $4 million for one season, but they didn't get better. They might have gotten a little worse at safety.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what Rabbit is, and two, if Rabbit can stay healthy. That's one of the things that we've talked about in regards to Rabbit. We both love his game, huge fans, and he's shown that he can play. He also has shown that the frame is a concern. The frame with the style play is a concern, and so we'll see how that works itself out over the next couple of weeks and into as the season starts.
Yeah, and they bring in Wingard, who can do. He's not as versatile as Thompson, because Thompson, he can play in the box, he can play deep, he can play in the nickel. He's very versatile in that sense. He just became very ordinary in his play over the last couple of years. And honestly, we might, depending on how this move goes, the combination of Rabbit and Wingard, we might end up missing Jalen Thompson because we missed the ordinary. But he wasn't bad. He was reliable back there. And one of the things, way back in the Vance Joseph days, and he was a massive Jalen Thompson fan because he erased mistakes. So there's a mistake that happens, instead of a 60-yard touchdown, it's a 15 to 20-yard game, and you get to live another down. Wingard, we'll see what happens. But also, I mean, he's a bigger body. He's a little bit bigger in frame. He also adds some fire and special teams. He's like this for me. And if you look at his career, he's like the defensive back version of Dennis Gardeck. And I think fans will really like him, for one, and just hopefully that he plays at least at the same level as Thompson did the last couple of years.
Right. And that's all you're asking for from him.
But you get him for cheaper, and that's something, I guess. Which brings us to the specialists. I don't know what we can say about this. They bring back Blake Gillikin, same punter. They bring back Chad Ryland, same kicker, although they do have Joshua Carty that they've returned, so it's going to be a little bit of competition in camp. We'll see how that goes this offseason. And gone is Aaron Brewer. In is Casey Kreider, who is 1 month younger than Brewer and is replacing Brewer on a team for the second time, because when Brewer came here in 2016, he became the Denver Broncos long snapper in 2016, where Brewer had been previously. And Kreider does have one Pro Bowl to his name. He spent the last 6 seasons with the New York Giants, and he comes over here. But can anyone say for certain that he's better than Aaron Brewer or worse than Aaron Brewer? I would say just be the same. And if that's the case, they didn't get better and they didn't get worse at their specialists.
Correct. And that's the question becomes, did they get better moving on from Jeff Rogers, who wasn't bad? I don't want people to think we're saying that, but also it seems like after 3 regime changes, his modus operandi had gone stale, correct?
Yeah, it just was like, he was fine. He's solid, but it was good to see him go somewhere else, going to Buffalo. That, like, go get yourself a championship over there if you can, playoff team, and not be he was a special teams coordinator for a few disasters, because he was here for 2018, he was here for 2020. So he's been part of 3 absolute dumpster fires with 3 different head coaches.
And that's more interesting to me than anything else, is that he stuck around and was able to be part of multiple dumpster fires. That's such a weird thing.
That is. But with that, that'll wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Seaward podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. So in all, guess what? The Cardinals, after free agency, aren't any better. And I don't know.
We have to just hope that they're not worse. I mean, that's genuinely what it is.
You're a 3-win team. You had cap space. You go out and spend a decent amount of money, not a lot of money, and you are no better than you were when the season ended. That doesn't look good because you're putting a lot on your rookies, and you can't count on rookies to help you this year. So, sorry guys. This team's not better, and in some positions are categorically worse. So, with that, we'll start talking draft probably next week, and that way we can bring some hope, because we can talk about players who can bring hope. I know it's hard to bring hope with Cardinals fans right now, but we'll do that with the draft. Until then, next week, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.